I am very happy to be able to mark with you the 70th anniversary of the foundation of the United Nations by focusing with you on one of the reasons for which this institution was founded, namely to work together toward peace, security, human rights, and development by building trust and understanding through intercultural dialogue. I must admit that with the arrival of Pope Francis in New York, in my house, just 2 days away, and so many last-minute details still to take care of, it's hard for me to think of anything else. But I hope that this brief reflection would allow me to bring this, I would say, pleasant preoccupation to bear on our topic by sharing with you just 3 thoughts, 3 ideas of Pope Francis on how intercultural dialogue can build mutual trust and understanding. Because if the UN won't take you to heaven, the Pope will try hard on that. So the first idea, the first thought, the first element that Pope Francis thinks is necessary for intercultural dialogue to take place or to flourish is that it must be cultivated within the context of our common humanity. The word he uses is it must be done within the context of fraternity. It is not primary cultures who enter into contact with each other, but persons who are rooted in culture, in history, in relationships. The anthropological foundation for dialogue is that human beings are relational and cannot live or develop to their potential except when through relationships with each other. No wonder that the Greek philosopher Socrates called the human person as a social animal. The dialogue that takes place is not fundamentally an exchange of ideas, nor not even an exchange of cultures, but truly a relationship of persons living their own cultures and their own identities. In his own life, Pope Francis is engaged in intercultural and interreligious dialogue through the principle that he calls journeying together, in Spanish, caminar juntos. Convinced that once people of different cultures begin to walk together in friendship, they begin to recognize how much humanity they have in common, how much beauty and goodness they can find in each other, and how much wisdom is imbued in the way the other approaches the most important common questions in life. This caminar juntos, or journeying together, is a dialogue of life, sharing joys and sorrows. For us Christians, we are familiar with the Bible, and as we could read in the letter of St. Paul to the Romans, rejoice with those who rejoice, and weep with those who weep. That is a trademark of one who knows how to journey with one another. Be of the same mind towards one another, and do not be haughty in mind. I believe that the fundamental mark when we become incapable of journeying together is when we do the opposite of what St. Paul is telling us. And that is, we should be worried if when we rejoice when others are weeping, or when we weep when others rejoice, right? It would not be journeying together. It would not be fraternity. This Caminar Juntos is a dialogue of collaboration, working together to promote the common good and to see that the values they share, values like the deep respect for conscience, for human dignity, for justice and peaceful coexistence, for the value of faith, and most importantly, love for one another, be reflected more in society. So it is therefore not just a physical walking together, it is above all walking together, sharing values, and in mutual concern. Just a couple of days ago in Cuba, last Sunday evening, the Pope met the young people of Cuba in Havana. And Pope Francis focused on how important this fraternal journey, this mutual intercultural enrichment is for bringing about a better future. Hope, he said, is a path taken with others. The culture of encounter should naturally lead to a culture of solidarity. Simple tolerance is not enough. We have to go well beyond that, passing from a suspicious and defensive attitude to one of acceptance, cooperation, concrete service, and effective assistance. That is very UN, you might say. In fact, in the words of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, we could read the number 24 in the political declaration that as we embark on this great collective journey, we pledge that no one will be left behind. And recognizing that the dignity of the human person is fundamental, we wish to see the goals and targets met for all nations and all peoples, and for all segments of society. And we will endeavor to reach the furthest behind first. Still in Cuba, Pope Francis quoted an African proverb, often mentioned also at UN. The proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And he commented, isolation and aloofness never generate hope, but closeness to others and encounter do. Left to ourselves, we will go nowhere, nor by exclusion will we be able to build a future for anyone, nor for ourselves. The path of hope calls for a culture of encounter, a dialogue that can overcome conflict and sterile confrontation. The world needs this culture of encounter more than ever before. Pope Francis considered this Camina Juntos really as a foundation for peace. And not only for peace, but also for development, also for fighting poverty as a necessary starting point for a just economy, as a critical defense against the bellicose spirit that we have, which leads us to wage war against one another. It is also a key to preserving and caring for our common home, our planet Earth. All these themes are very dear to the United Nations. That is why many people ask me, why should, if the Pope is a pastor and not a politician, if he is more of a father rather than an authority, you might say, hard power, as Dr. Mark has said, the Pope comes to the UN because he believes that the Church that he's leading, the Holy See, and the United Nations share these core fundamental values. We may have disagreements here and there, but we do believe that the United Nations, if it did not exist, we would have to invent it, as somebody says. Mm-hmm. The Pope will express appreciation for what the United Nations has been for the last 70 years, but at the same time, he will remind the United Nations that our failures, our collective failures, are also a result of our incapacity to dialogue. The second insight I would just like to mention rapidly is that Pope Francis believes that intercultural dialogue happens through a shared memory, through searching for the patrimony common to all human beings, and ethical values found within different traditions, and bringing that patrimony into the present as a shared good. Might be difficult to put it into the concrete, but if we don't know how to put it, then we will really be in trouble. For Pope Francis, the common intercultural journey is a path made of memory and discernment, because sometimes we try to please one another, and to please one another, we forget who we are, because we try to accommodate everything that others, we think that others want us to adopt. I think holding to cultural identities requires discernment, and that's the third point that Pope Francis would like to say. That is why to accept everything that other cultures would offer you simply because we want to be pleasant would not lead us to real and authentic cultural, intercultural dialogue. We are aware how important it is to discover our commonalities, but we must also accept that not all our cultures are equal, not all cultures are, we might say, equal in the sense that everybody must have it, but deep inside, in spite of these differences, we must learn how to mutually respect one another and one another's culture. I think those 3 points, I just wanted to, outline them very briefly. That is the basis of intercultural dialogue, as well as interreligious dialogue. And there is the fourth point that I would like to add that Pope Francis also mentions, and which have always been also in our own culture, Catholic culture, you might say, and that is we insist that culture includes, as one of its essential elements, the recognition of transcendence. We commonly call it religion. Intercultural dialogue, therefore, must be open to that very essential element of so many cultures, and that is the openness to transcendence. Call it God, call it spirit, whatever you want. But these cultures look beyond what you see. My dear friends, I would just like to conclude that as we celebrate together the 70th anniversary of the United Nations and prepare also for the visit of the Pope, I hope that these little insights can help us build in the past 70 years and move towards the future, seeking to achieve the aims of this institution to bring peoples together, to collaborate towards peace, security, human rights, and development. Those are all our core values. Those are all our common goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you.